What if the idea is better than the reality? In a way, I think that's the case for Araujo right now, and based on that, I can see a transfer happening to a club that you might not expect. Because Araujo is supposed to be all about reliable defending, ball winning and duels. Those are areas where he has to stand out. Why? Well, compared to the other Barca centre backs, he's not the best in possession. Just like Eric Garcia and Cubarsí are not known for being brutal defenders, at least they offer a lot of value on the ball. Araujo picked up a red card against Chelsea and once again failed to deliver in a game where we needed him to step up. It was a chaotic game state and one that's supposed to suit Araujo, which is why I definitely think it was the right decision from Hansi Flick to start him. Because if you're not going to start Araujo in a game such as that one, when are you then going to play him? The game state suited his defensive profile, but in the end it didn't work. However, at least we got answers that we might have to act on. Before I get started, I want to say that I know Araujo is struggling. This is not supposed to be hate, but constructive criticism in an open debate among people who want the best for the club. In fact, Araujo is one of those people. He chose to step back for a little bit because he knows that he's not at the right place mentally. And for me, that just shows that he cares about the club and the way we perform. So credit where it's due. PSG, Inter, Chelsea. 3 games that must be discussed. 3 big moments where we needed Araujo to be influential, but where he couldn't. Against PSG, he got a red card while Barca was leading, making it nearly impossible to reach the Champions League semi-finals. I remember the frustration among the Barca fans, and I also remember thinking to myself, that right there is a key moment in Araujo's career, something he has to learn from. This mistake can't repeat itself at the biggest stage. In the following season, he came on against Inter in the Champions League semi-finals. At the time, Barca were suffering, and we needed him to be a reliable ball winner. Instead, he lost some key duels, which led to Barca conceding goals. Now, that was definitely not all his fault. There were a lot of things going wrong in that game, but you did expect more from him coming on as a substitute with fresh legs. Then against Chelsea, another red card in the worst possible way. And even though that game was not as decisive as the other two, it still concerns that Barca have to address. Now, I think we should support players, but then again, this is Barca, a club that is supposed to be competitive at the highest level. Maybe Araujo bounces back, but we have to consider the answers we have gotten so far. And looking at those answers, I think it's fair to say that Barca have to sign a new centre back. That makes Araujo's future worth discussing, because as I said earlier, there's one potential transfer I can see in the horizon. In the 22-23 season, Araujo was widely considered one of the best defenders in the world. He was repeatedly used as right back to stop Vinicius. He scored some important goals and was part of a record-breaking defensive line. Now his market value reflected that level. He was worth about 70 million, but that has changed. Right now, his value has dropped to 35 million. A big difference. So in one way, injuries have certainly played a key role in this. It has affected his form and maybe also his physical condition. Some will say that he has declined individually, but there's also been another change. A change that can be found in Barca's system. 2-23 season under Xavi, where Araujo absolutely thrived. We defended in more of a compact mid-block. Fast forward to this season, and Barca run one of the highest defensive lines in Europe and used quite an unusual strategy, which is the offside trap that I've talked about before. Offside trap is incredibly demanding. Barca's entire way of defending is demanding. The likes of Gerard Martin and Nico Martinez even spoke about struggling to sleep in the aftermath of games due to how much energy it takes to concentrate about defending. And maybe if you compare Araujo's performances this and even last season to the performances he had in a different system, you can start talking about whether or not Araujo is fit for this type of football. Do you like Football Manager games? If you do, make sure to download Retro Football Manager and coach legendary sides such as Barca under Pep Guardiola. Completely free, link in the caption. Some will say that Araujo fell off and he can't perform at the same level anymore. And maybe they're right, but I would also argue that some could see him as a market opportunity. And here is where I think a former Barca sporting director could come into play. A sporting director who currently works at another club. He's very popular among the Barca fan base, and that is Alemany. Alemany is at Atletico Madrid, and while that club is known for being extremely good defensively, that's not really been the case the last few seasons. I think they've struggled more defensively than most realize. But here's the key. Their coach, Simeone, prefers defending in a compact 4-4-2, and at least in the biggest games, they're happy to sit back and absorb pressure. He wants a very structured defensive block. Simeone isn't afraid to sit deep and force opponents to try to break them down, and honestly, I think that type of system could suit Araujo better than Barca's high defensive line and offside trap. So Alemany, he might see a player whose market value is quite low in one system at least, but then in another system, that value might be higher, an opportunity. What I'm really saying is that Araujo's value could be significantly higher inside Atletico Madrid's defensive structure than it is on paper right now, because his market value is based on how he's performing at Barca. And Barca run a very complicated defensive system, one that's not for everyone. So for Atletico Madrid, the upside to signing him could be huge, especially if they get him on a fair deal and they don't have to pay too much. So what does this mean for Araujo's future? Another reason why I think that Atletico Madrid might go for him is the relationship between the two clubs, Barca and Atletico Madrid. You just have to look at names such as David Villa, Luis Suarez, Griezmann, Joao Felix, all big players that have played for both clubs. They've moved directly between Barca and Atletico Madrid, and history tends to repeat itself. They're not afraid to negotiate, they're not afraid to do business, and Alemany, who has a strong relationship with Barca, now being at Atletico Madrid, could definitely impact things. Can this benefit Barca in any way? Well, let's just say that there's one Atletico Madrid player that Barca are very interested in, and it has to do with a specific striker. However, do not get your hopes up. It would never be a straight swap deal. Julian Alvarez is simply far too valuable. You never know in football. It could trigger a chain reaction. Doors can open, negotiations can begin. It obviously depends a lot on what the player wants. But in that context, Araujo could become an important part of the conversation. His time at Barca is likely coming to an end, and I think Atletico Madrid could be one of the clubs that are ready to take him on. Please make sure to let me know what you think.